Hello and welcome to the IELTS Multi-step program. My name is Lanre and I'll be your anchor through this session. Today, we'll be dealing with the writing section of the IELTS, and this is unarguably one of the most challenging areas that most non-native users of the language find challenging. So what is it about writing that makes it so difficult to pass? What is it about writing that ensures that a lot of people do not go beyond the band 6 mark? What is it about writing that ensures that a lot of people make simple mistakes that drops their scores every day and every day? Today, I'll be walking you through the mistakes that you've been making, the mistakes that a lot of test takers make, and the strategies that can correct these mistakes and shoot you from a band 6 or a band 7 to an instant band 9. But before I start this video, I will point out that a couple of tips that I will be sharing with you, and the most important tip is towards the end. So you need to watch this video till the complete end for you to get the best benefit from this session. Come along with me as we begin this journey. So what is the writing section of the IELTS? What does it entail? Is it the same for both the academic module and the general training module? That's where we'll start from. For the academic module, your writing is in two parts. For the general training module also, the writing is in two parts. You have writing task 1 and you have writing task 2. The combined duration for both tasks is 1 hour. While writing task 1 takes you 20 minutes, writing task 2 is designed to take you between 40 to 35 minutes. For the academic module, your writing task 1 is simply a report where you are supposed to interpret visual data in the form of a report. For your writing task 1 for general training, you're writing a letter. This letter could either be formal, informal, or semi-formal. And usually it is drawn from a context that is either work-related, academic-related, or even a social scenario. For the writing task 2, both modules have the same question. For the academic and the general training module, you will be required to write an opinion essay where you will be required to give an opinion or to give a view or to give a claim that you will defend with reasons and examples to illustrate your point. Very straightforward and easy and simple task. So why is it that so many people fail this simple task? And that is what we're here to explore today. Our schedule for today will run through this, and I will read out this schedule so that you can follow through as we go further. Remember, these videos are designed to help you in your self-study process, and also designed to complement whatever out-of-class experience that you're having in preparing for the IELTS. Remember that you need to pause the video at several intervals or rewind them to get the tips clearly, and also ensure that you can practice or deploy them instantly. Interpreting the question will be the first stage, and after that we'll move to the general training writing task 1, onto academic writing task 1, and then we'll deal with the writing task 2, which is the same for both modules. And what we'll be dealing when we get to the writing task 2 we'll deal with the introduction, writing the body paragraphs, and concluding. We will also take a look at peculiar question types and tips to address them, and we will also look at editing, proofreading, and improving written work. Finally, we will take a look at connectives and the grammar behind IELTS writing. These will form the crux of what we'll be discussing today, and I can assure you that it is loaded with nuggets and tips that would ensure that that desired success that you want is something that you can achieve. So, why is interpreting the question the first and most important task that you need to do when you get to the writing section of the IELTS? Over time, we have discovered that a lot of non-native test takers do not take their time to interpret the question. People set out to write a 250-word essay without even understanding what the question requires of them. At the end of the day, you would have written a load of beautiful nonsense with the right words, the right expression, the right grammar, the right vocabulary, but you did not answer the question. The marking criteria for the writing task in the IELTS has task achievement or task response as the most important criteria. What does this mean? Did you answer the question fully? Did you answer the question correctly? So, In a 20-minute task for task 1, I would advise you to spend at least 4 to 3 minutes, depending on your level of interpretation or your language or level of language competence, 4 to 3 minutes interpreting the question. Taking the question paper, looking at the question, running it through your mind and trying to decipher if there are any hidden angles to the question is something that is compulsory and non-negotiable. You must interpret the question correctly before you can attempt to start answering the question or sharing your thoughts or even developing your thoughts about it. Please do not disregard this. It is equal to failure if you start an IELTS essay without having a full grasp of what the question requires you to do. I have seen people set out to write a letter in the General Training Writing Task 1 and they do not address all the written prompts there, all the outlined prompts there. I have seen people set out to write the academic task 1 for the academic module, which is the report for a visual data, and they do not address all the information on the graph or on the pie chart or on the bar chart that has been given to them. I have also seen a lot of people set out to write the opinion essay in the writing task 2 without taking cognizance of the fact that there's a hidden element in the question that they need to respond to. Failure to do this will ensure that you do not go beyond the band 6, irrespective of how good, of how cool, of how perfect your paths of expression are. So, interpreting the question requires you to break it down into different parts. So what are the different parts of an IELTS question? For the writing task 1, which is academic, what you have is this. You will have a sentence setting the context for what you're going to describe. A sentence setting the context for what you're going to address or describe. So you could have, for example, the bar chart below shows the percentage of people who attended cinema shows between 2001 and 2011 in Australia. That is the sentence that set the context for the question. The second part of the question will now ask you to summarize the main details and make comparisons where relevant. This is the second part of the question, and it's a very, very important part. It is clearly stated there that what you need to do is a summary of all the main details and also a comparison where relevant. A lot of people set out to write a report by putting down all the details there, be it major or minor, without making any comparisons. Definitely, this will not allow you to get the maximum scores applicable for the writing task 1. For the letter in the general training module, that's for the writing task 1 in the general training module, you'll be given a letter. You'll be given a question that could read, write a letter to your best friend. You have recently decided to travel out of the country. Write a letter to your best friend who has agreed to house seats for you. In the letter, and they will now give you 3 or 4 prompts that would be under the sentence that has been given to you. In the letter, you should say, you should give contact information for when you're away, instructions on how to take care of your pet, and further instructions on other household chores that you might be willing or that you might be interested in. You will discover that these 3 prompts have been assigned to you to help you structure your letter. If you write a letter, a very good letter, without addressing any of those prompts, you will be seen as not answering the question fully, and you will not get the maximum scores applicable for that task. So you see that interpreting the question is a very significant step in the journey towards success in the writing section of the IELTS, and it is something that you cannot afford not to do. So let's move on to the academic writing task 1 before we even get in depth into the structure of what the writing task entails. I mentioned earlier that the complete duration for the writing section of the IELTS is just 1 hour. And for the writing task 1, you have 20 minutes to deliver a piece of written work that is not less than 150 words. Now, this might seem like a tall order for people who are not used to writing regularly. But if you look at it, it is actually quite easily done, as 150 words is very minute or small. Before we go further, I'd like to just quickly clear something. A lot of people ask me, how do I decide if it is 150 words or 250 words? How do I know if I'm writing the prescribed number of words. Easy task. When you take a piece of paper from a notebook being a normal notebook that is ruled already, that is lined already, what you need to do is you need to count the number of average words that you use in writing a sentence on a page, on a line. So for example, if there are 20 lines on a page and the average number of words that I write for every line is 7 words, that means that if I write 10 lines, I have written 70 words. So this is the easy strategy for you to know if you are writing in accordance with the prescribed word count. And this is something that can be done easily within 3 to 5 seconds and should not intrude into the time that you will be using to think up your thoughts or develop your ideas for the writing task. I've seen a lot of people write their essays or write their letters and stop halfway just to count the words. And I discovered that what this does is that it immediately distracts them from the task at hand. You do not want to fall into this trap, and this is something that is easily avoided if you just take note of the tip that I said earlier. For the academic writing task 1, what does it entail and how does it look like? What can you do to be the one who succeeds the most in the academic writing task 1? There are different types of data that will be given to you in the academic writing task 1. Remember, it is simply a report of a visual data that you have been given. You're writing a report describing what you can see. Here, your knowledge, your opinion, your views, your claims do not matter. In fact, this is not the type of task that you need to put in any external information. You are not asked to interpret what you can see. You're only asked to write and describe what you can see. A lot of people fail the writing task 1 for the academic module only because they go there to interpret the data that they can see. So you see information in a graph and then you start making assumptions or you start jumping to conclusions given the by using the data in the graph or in the chart to make those assumptions. That is not your job for the writing task 1. What you are expected to do is simply describe what you have on the piece of paper in front of you. So, what are the different types of data that could be given to you in your writing task 1? You could have a diagram, you could have a map, you could have a pie chart, you could have a bar chart, you could have a graph, you could have a flow chart describing a process. Those are the 6 common types of data that visual data that could be given to you in the academic module, in the writing task 1 for the academic module. Why is it important to know these different types of data? It is important because the first thing that you will be doing in the introduction of that writing task is to describe what you can see, to give a description of what you can see. So your first sentence would look like this: the graph below, or the graph shows, the graph illustrates, the chart illustrates, the pie chart illustrates, the bar chart illustrates, the diagram depicts. All these things that I've just mentioned point at the fact that you need to know the exact word for what you can see on your question paper to be able to describe it adequately. It would not be appropriate for me to use the word diagram to describe a bar chart. It would not be appropriate for me to use the word map to describe a flow chart. Knowing the exact word to use to describe what you can see on your question paper is the first step on your path to success in the writing task 1 for the academic module. The next thing that you will be doing after that is to decide if the data you've been given is either static or dynamic. What do I mean by static data? Data that isn't changing. It is fixed. If it is dynamic, it means it undergoes changes. Now, dynamic data is usually found in graphs, while you find static data usually in tables or in charts. What is the difference and what is the significance of knowing if this information or if the data that you are dealing with is changing or it is static? When you are using words to describe the actions or to interpret the data that you have, you will understand the importance of differentiating between dynamic and static data. In subsequent videos where we'll be doing practical sessions of answering questions on the academic writing task 1, I will be giving you a practical demonstration of how to employ vocabulary that is peculiar or that is particular to either static data or dynamic data. So I will not stretch that at this point.